The map says Appalachian Mountains, like it's one long green word. But every ridge has a memory. Every holler keeps a ledger you don't get to read. Out here, sound travels crooked. A name thrown across water comes back improved. Footsteps on leaf litter find a better rhythm than yours and keep it. Locals keep rules like matches. Don't whistle after dark. Don't follow foxfire off the trail. Keep iron in your pocket and your full name off the water. Tonight isn't folklore polished for tourists. These are first-hand accounts, pulled from trail registers, county radio logs, and survivor notes. For privacy, names and locations are changed. The fear is not. If the window fog ever pulls inward like it wants a kiss, don't match its breath. If something whistles your tune back, don't answer perfect things. If a door learns your hand, change your hand. You're watching Horror Nexus. Dim the room. Let the ridge speak. Tonight, I'm going to tell you 5 true, disturbing Appalachian Mountains horror stories, as they were lived and never fully left behind. Storms don't roar here. They drag their feet. They pull the ridge down over the road like a blanket and wait for you to crawl under. Name's Evan Riddle, 34. Line tech for the co-op, District C, Riverside. I run night calls because I like quiet work that minds its manners. Poles, insulators, tags. You fix a thing, the dark says thanks in its own way. The call came at 22:09. Blink at Oxbow, dispatch said. Substation at mile 12. Likely a branch across cutout. Alone okay? Alone is how I prefer my improvement. The road into the holler had slid in places, red clay shouldering into ditch. My bucket truck muttered about it, but kept its faith. Trees leaned like eavesdroppers. Rules I keep when I'm out where radios turn to gossip. Don't whistle after dark. Don't put your full name across water. Keep a bent iron nail in your pocket and your hand on the latch like you're a stranger. The substation squats past a stand of poplar and a creek that refuses to pick a lane. Chain link, crushed stone, 1-yard transformer that sounds like bees remembering a hymn. When the wind falls, the sound rides your bones. I parked in the pull-off and let the engine die slow so the place could hear me arrive. Gate lock took my key like it was doing me a favor. Inside, the gravel pushed back at my boots like stubborn thoughts. I did the walk, check the fence for ground, look at the recloser display, look at the expulsion cutouts along the outgoing feeder, 3 porcelain drums hanging from arms that hate lightning but marry it when they must. Feeder B showed an open on phase 2. The cutout had dropped, hinge gaping like a yawn you pretend not to see. All right, I told the storm that had happened. Your turn's over. I swung the bucket and eased up to the crossarm. Porcelain looked clean. Hinge would reseat when I sent it mercy. I slid the hot stick into the bale like a man putting a letter back into a mailbox he didn't open. Before I pushed, the pull tag caught my light. Aluminum oval. Co-op stamp. Feeder, span, installed it. And a line someone had scratched with a scriber that wasn't ours. 22:31. Evan. Close. My clock read 22:22. I tell myself a lot of things for a living. Boys with pocket knives, I said to nobody. Bored day crew. Bad joke I looked at. The next tag down the line. Same scribble. Hand, neat, careful. 22:43. Evan. Reset fuse. I didn't like how clean the letters were. Nobody writes pretty with gloves. I reset the cutout anyway. Good practice waits on respect. Stick up, bail in, arm over, clack. The substation tone deepened, the way a choir does when baritones remember themselves. River hummed agreement. Lights in the cut-down houses along the opposite ridge lit in a wave, like a verdict traveling through a jury. My radio burped a clean carrier, and then a voice that had my mouth in it. Good close. I hadn't keyed it. I unplugged the mic and set it behind the seat where voices go to get lost. I turned the stick to the next mess. The sector switch on span 4 that loves to sulk after rain. On the way, I stopped at the next pole because the tag was shining like a coin you don't trust. 2239. Evan. Trim limb. Don't step in water. There was a puddle under the guy anchor. Nothing sinister, just rain pretending to be a mirror. But the way the pothole sat, too round, too proud, felt like a mouth waiting for a name. I stepped around. If superstition keeps you dry, it's science. The limb was an easy cut. Touch the branch with the fiberglass saw, 2 smooth pulls, let it drop away from the lines like a man ducking out of a photograph. No flash, no burn, no college lesson. I like repairs that behave. I looked down. My boot prints in the crushed stone had a friend. Softer heel, same stride, a half step behind. Smudged like a child choosing the same rocks to stand on. Fox, I told the part of me that carries fear like a spare fuse. Stray dog. Then a whistle came from the creek. Not bird, not boy. The first 2 notes of wayfaring stranger, plain as the day my grandmother taught me not to sing it in a mirror. I did not answer. You don't answer perfect things. You keep your rule in your mouth like iron. The sector switch lever sat stubborn, rust proud of itself. The tag on that pole read 2247, Evan. Don't look back. My clock said 2236. I set my jaw like a man turning off a porch light. I took the lever and walked the switch through its travel. Count slow, I said, low, because counting is a way to stay alone inside your head. 1, 2, 3. The whistle from the creek counted with me, wrong on purpose, like it wanted to practice. I let the lever seat. The line answered with a tidy thrum. Houses blinked again down the far ridge, a smaller wave returning to shore. When I turned around, the gate to the yard was closed. I hadn't closed it. Chain lay in a polite half-knot, lock hanging like a tongue. Wind, I told the fence. Gravity. When I went to open it, the lock lifted a 1/4 inch in my hand, like it wanted to help. I changed my grip, palm first, then twist, so the hasp wouldn't learn me. Gate swung the other way like manners. I checked the last tag near the road because I hate not knowing what the future thinks of me. 2252, Evan. Don't answer your name. I put the hot stick back in its tube and stood the way men stand when they're waiting for the night to admit a joke. From across the creek, my voice called, Evan. Not a shout. The way my mother used it when there was hot bread on the table, and I'd already been told once. I didn't look. You can love a voice and ignore it. Evan, it tried again, softer. Then, to be certain I was the only one being invited, Evan Riddle. My hand found the bent nail in my pocket, like it had been mapping me for years. I put the iron on my tongue the way old-timers do about lightning. It tasted like blood and pennies and childhood. I don't take my full name in water, I told the creek without lips. The bucket truck's dome light came on by itself and then clicked off, like someone had checked to see if I'd forgotten a tool. Time did a slow circuit of the yard. 2247 arrived the way promises do, quietly, at a distance, and then all at once. The wind shifted. The transformer tone slid half a key lower and back, like the bees had remembered a second verse. On the feeder, insulators pinged as the heat moved through them. Anyone else would call it normal. I do too when the paperwork is paying attention. Evan, the creek said, like it was cold and wanted me to come share the work of making tonight a little warmer. I unlatched the gate and got in the truck, because wheels are a kind of prayer. The pole tag on the far fence caught my headlamp as I turned. I hadn't checked that one. Nobody had asked me to. I stepped out again because curiosity and death used the same boots. 2259. Evan. Home. That's it. No verb. No kindness. I put my hand on the cab door and it clicked a hair open before I pulled, as if the truck wanted to show off that it knew me. I changed my hand, elbow first, then fingers, so the hinge wouldn't get proud. I drove slow back down the road that had slid. Branches touched the mirror like poor excuses. A foxfire glow nudged the ditch line where the creek ran beside me. Green lamps in the moss making lanes of invitations. Rules are free and expensive. Don't follow lights you didn't hang yourself. Halfway to the highway, the bucket's boom light blinked once, like the substation had learned my blink and wanted to wave back. I killed the switch. It blinked anyway, then forgot how, like a child losing interest. Home is a single wide on a cove road that telephones used to respect. I park under a walnut that throws thoughts when it's bored. I keep iron nails over the door, not because I believe, but because not believing tends to be expensive. Inside, the window fog pulled inward when I set the kettle on. 1 breath, 2, matching me. I breathed wrong, 2 in, 5 out, until the glass forgot my rhythm and went back to being a window. On the table sat my work tags, a bundle bound in a rubber band I never bring home. Top tag, double asterisk, feeder B, span 2. Pressed into the soft aluminum, shallow and shy, the word home. I pressed a thumb there. The metal felt warm as a story someone won't tell you yet. From the sink, water in the trap asked softly if it could borrow my name, just until morning. I ran the tap to be rude. Back at the yard next day, I filed my report the way men who want to stay hired do. Rain, cut out, sector, all clean, no art. I checked the substation log for my entry just to see the shape of what I had said. At the bottom, in a neat, unfamiliar hand that carried my bad habit of crossing T too low, 2259, Evan, home. I asked only one question of the desk man because I am not brave enough for 2. Who has the scriber? He looked at me like I'd asked where we keep the ghosts. We don't keep a scriber, he said. We print the tags. I put my bent nail back in my pocket and smiled like a man who knows a good door when he leaves one closed.
If you work alone where sound travels crooked, take this with your fuses. Don't put your full name across water. Let the creek keep its own role. Don't follow lights you didn't hang. Don't answer whistles that sing back better than you. Change your hand on every latch so doors never learn you. Keep iron in your pocket. Give the window your bad breath, not your timing. When a tag tells you the hour before you earn it, do the work and go. Don't admire the handwriting. I still take night calls. Storms still drag their feet on this ridge. The bees in the yard still remember hymns I don't sing. Sometimes on the road by the creek, a voice uses my mother's tone and asks me to bring the light a little closer so the water can see my face. I count slow. I keep iron. I don't answer perfect things. And if I pass mile 12 right at 22:59 and the poll tags shine like coins I ought to turn over, I keep rolling. I let the hour love someone whose rules are cheaper. You don't lock a ridgetop church at night because you're scared. You lock it because music lingers, and music up here learns names if you let it. I'm Caleb Minton, 42, volunteer caretaker for Ragged Pine Primitive, a white clapboard square planted on a knob where fog parks to rest. Pastor drives in from the valley twice a month. The rest of the time it's me. Sweep mouse rice, shore the steps, oil hinges that remember funerals too clearly. Our church sings shape note, fa, so, la. 4 shapes, 4 sounds, 4 corners. Once a quarter, folks form the hollow square, trebles, altos, tenors, bass. We face each other and sing loud enough to loosen nails. No instruments, no apology. If you've never felt a hymn hit you in the chest like lumber, you can borrow mine. Rules I keep. Never whistle after dark on the ridge. Something might bring your tune back cleaner. Don't leave the pulpit Bible open. Words go walking. If singing starts when nobody's there, you do not answer harmony with harmony. Breathe wrong, change your hand on the latch, go. This started the week after homecoming. We'd sung ourselves hoarse and polite. Covered dishpans went home light and proud. Monday, a storm rolled the knob flat and left leaves like pennies plastered to the doors. I swept, set the hymnal's spine out, pulled the chain on the light, locked up, and headed for the truck. The wind let me get to the gate before it stopped. Not calmed, stopped, like a breath held. From inside the church came one soft fa, just the pitch. Not a bird, not a wire. A human syllable placed where a man can find it. I let the gate chain hang and went back like a fool with manners. The latch, anticipated, dropped a hair under my hand before I turned it. I changed my hand, palm flat first, then twist, so the door wouldn't learn me, and stepped into cool wood and dust that means prayer. Hymnals lay proper. Benches squared their shoulders. In the hollow square, the tenor bench, the leader's seat, had slid a poor inch toward the center, a child edging onto a dance floor. "Who's there?" I asked the low air, because my mother taught me to be polite to empty rooms. The room kept my question for later. I did the circuit. Windows latched, stovepipe capped, lamp chimneys clean, pulpit Bible closed, ribbon tucked so it wouldn't lose its place. When I laid my palm on the Bible, the thin paper exhaled under my hand, warmth where cold lived a second before. Not breath, memory trying on lungs. I shut it gentle and turned for the door. The bench slid that poor inch back like it had reconsidered boldness. A counting whisper lapped the rafters. Fa, so, la, fa. Like someone testing a pitch pipe they didn't own. I didn't answer. Rule is rule. I locked up, taught the latch to forget me, and walked the knob's rim so the church could put me down somewhere decent. 2 nights later, I came to replace the hasp on the back door. Winter promises splinters. Half up the steps, I stopped.
The door stood unlatched. No pry marks, no shoe scrape, just unlatched, the way doors do when they've been learning hands. "Caleb," said a voice from the nave in my father's cadence, a man gone 10 years and never once a singer. Not loud, placed, like a choir leader measuring breath. I stepped in and let the hinges speak first. The hollow square had arranged itself, benches crisped to corners, a single chair set in the center where the leader stands to beat time. A tuning fork I don't own lay on the chair's seat, A stamped on its shoulder, metal cold as confession. The fork vibrated once, soft like a moth hitting glass. On the pulpit, the appointment book we used to mine funerals sat open to Sunday next. In my handwriting, nothing. Under it, in smaller exact script that carried my bad low cross on every T, singing 7 o'clock. Leader C. Minton. I didn't write that. I don't ever lead. I beat hammers and brooms. I leave beating time to those who've earned it. I closed the book. It kept the groove of the letters like an emboss. I set to work to starve whatever wanted me. Screws, hasp, chisel. Doing keeps the room from deciding for you. Halfway through, the room did anyway. The singing started. Not voices with words, syllables, punching like a weather front. Fa, so, la, fa. The way they do when we sing the shapes first before we add poetry. It came from everywhere at once, from corners, from pew seams, from the dust and sunlight. I kept my hands moving. Chisel, tap, follow grain. If the roof falls, let it find you useful. The tenor line took the melody clean. The alto came under with those good, stubborn women's voices I've loved since I knew what love costs. The bass rolled up from the floorboards like thunder you made by making mistakes and forgiving them. The trebles floated like creek light in August and cut like January. I put the chisel down because a man can pretend only so far. The beating started next. Hand time in the center, invisible hand. Down, left, up, right. A square traced in air, beating my breath. When I held my breath, the beat made one more lap and then waited, patient as a mother with her palm on your back. Don't, I told the air. Don't learn me. The bench nudged my leg, leader's chair, asking to be occupied. I stepped aside and let it try to persuade someone who wasn't here. I walked to the back door to fetch the hasp screws I'd left in the tin. At the jamb, I stopped. Writing had bloomed on the inside of the door in the sweat of the grain, letters dark where Pine had learned to spell Cal-in. Weren't carved, pressed by humidity's preference. Under it, lighter, out 7:43. I checked my watch, 6:59. The counting swelled, fa, so, la. Then words arrived, the way thunder arrives after a flash. And am I born to die? Old Idumea, the one that makes a 40-year-old man suddenly 12 and honest. The alto took the first line, the tenor answered, the bass confessed. Nobody living sang, and the room still had to lift its roof a notch to make room for what came up through the floor. My chest rolled a second beat to match the hand. I starved it, 2 in, 5 out, wrong on purpose, until the beating hesitated and found a new volunteer. Caleb, said the air again, this time in my own mouth, not my father's. Bring it in. I stepped outside into the fog like a coward who will live to mop again. Fog held the hymn like glass holds a note. You could feel the song ride the knob down into the holler and turn where the creek turns, and find the old cemetery and ask a question. I stood under the eaves and counted the beats to make the building think it had me measured. Then, while the bass lifted a good sorrow to God, I did a bad thing. I beat wrong. Down, up, left, right. Not the square, a diamond. Inside, the time stuttered. 2 beats stepped on each other. A bench foot skipped and tapped the floor twice like a child tripping and pretending it didn't. I walked to the bell rope and put one finger on it like I might pull and like I might not. The rope was warm like a neck. "Not mine," I told the bell. "Not tonight." The hymn finished with that good, terrible last chord that makes men check their pockets to see if courage is where they left it. Silence came like snow. I waited for a second hymn. We always sing 2. The room waited with me, then breathed once, the rafters spreading a hair, and fell still. I set the new hasp, closed the door, and told the latch a stranger touched it. On the way out, I put the tuning fork in my pocket. Cold bit my thigh like a rule.
Sunday came. Folks filled the hollow square with living heat and wrong shoes for winter. I set hymnals on benches and refused to stand in the center, refused to beat, refused to be the story. The leader, a girl of 19 with a wrist like a conductor's, took the chair. I split to the bass and let the floor remember me. We sang Idumea for real, and it didn't haunt, it healed. Then we sang 4 more till a baby answered us with good lungs, and everyone laughed the way people do when the dark steps back to watch like a gentleman. After, I locked up, while the ridge ran our sound through its teeth like a dog with a bone. At the back door, the sweat writing had changed. Cal out 7:43. Below it, small, home. I wiped the letters with my sleeve. The grain preferred them anyway. At my house down the road, the front screen door knows my hand. That night, it lowered its latch a hair before I turned it. I changed my hand, knuckles first, then hook, so the door would not be proud. In the kitchen, my old harmonium, bellows cracked, reeds sticky, exhaled a faint f by itself, a wheeze under the kettle. Not a note, a start of one. I set my palm on the bellows. It warmed under me like a forehead. On the table lay the appointment book I'd left at church. I didn't bring it. Open to next Sunday, 7 o'clock, leader C. Minton, pressed faint as if written under the page I wrote on. I closed it. It kept the pressure, like good paper does when it's choosing a side. From the sink, old pipes hummed a thin la, and waited to see if I would bring so. I ran water. I breathed wrong. I let the house be bored of me. Folks ask if places are haunted. I say places are hungry. Hunger loves rhythm. If you fight a hunger with hunger, you will teach it your name. So here are the rules a square taught me. If the hollow square forms itself, do not fill the center. Let the air conduct alone. Breathe wrong when time starts beating your chest. Starve the metronome. Keep the Bible closed. Don't let words walk around at night. If your name appears in wood sweat, change your hand on every latch until the grain forgets you. Don't answer Idumea with Idumea when nobody living asked. I still sweep mouse rice. I still oil hinges that remember funerals. Sometimes a fa floats in the empty and waits for a friend. Sometimes the benches inch toward the square like the start of an apology. Sometimes the harmonium at home sighs a pitch under the kettle, and the appointment book writes my name in a pressure you can feel with your skin. When it does, I step out on the porch and count wrong to 10 with the ridge until both of us forget who was supposed to lead. And if the door ever lowers its latch before I touch it, I change my hand and let the knob unlearn the only part of me the song wants. The tipple hasn't loaded a car in 10 years. It still talks at night. Bolts settling, plate steel cooling. Old work remembering itself in pieces. Names: Virgil Suttles, 50. Third-generation miner, now a warehouse guard with keys that feel too light. Once a month, when the weather minds its manners, I ride up to the Laurel Fork gate and check the fence, as if fences keep geology honest. Rules I learned underground and keep on dry land. Don't answer knocks unless a living man you can see made them. Don't step over chalk that isn't yours. Keep iron in your pocket, scrip coin, spike, something that remembers heat. Never speak your full name where the air changes temperature without a reason. The road up is red clay elbowing stone. The gate sits under red maple that drops leaves like pennies. Behind it, the fan house slumps in weeds, a cinder block cube nailed to a mouth we bricked shut. We sealed Laurel Fork after a bad roof year and a good lawsuit. Boreholes went in, gas got time, men went elsewhere. Even dead fans moan when the ridge winds right. Not rotation, a throat sound. Return air remembering where to go. I stand outside the fan house and listen like old men do in the dark. I keep my script in my fist till it warms. Tonight it warmed too fast. Metal learns your blood and steals it. Gate chain took my key like a dog that still knows the word. I walked the padlock through the hasp twice so my hands could pretend we were hired to do more than memory. Fence was fine. Fan house door was not. It sat a 1/4 inch proud at the latch, like a thought about leaving. The latch lowered a hair before I touched it. I changed my hand, palm flat, then twist, so metal wouldn't learn me. Door breathed a stale cool at my boots. Coal dust never forgives. It only forgets to be angry. Inside, the fan crouched under web and good intentions. Belt gone, motor bolted, housing mouth sealed with block and foam and engineering signatures.
On the wall hung the old chalkboard we used to log starts and stops. Date, shift, methane, amps, notes if you were conscientious or lonely. Someone had wiped it half clean and wrote in fresh block letters that matched the way I write when I hurry. In 1907, V. Suttles, check return air. My phone read 1851. I rubbed the board with my fist. Chalk resisted, left the groove of my name like dry skin leaves a story in winter light. I told myself this: kids come up here, paint, dare each other, find ways to scare girls and disappoint fathers. I put that sentence in my mouth and chewed till it was useful. A cold draft slid under the block seal. Not gas, not good. Fans are supposed to arrange the thinking for air. Ours had been retired with ceremony and paperwork. Still, the return breathed back into the house like a lung that doesn't know what body it's in. I put the scrip coin on my tongue because men older than me did stupid things and survived. It tasted like blood and paydays and my grandfather. The moan took a rhythm. Low, high, pause. Not wind. A heartbeat a boy might be proud of until the mountain borrowed it. I held my breath. The moan kept time. One more pulse, and then forgot how. When I breathed again, it matched me again, eager student. Not for you, I told Cinderblock and air. I breathed wrong on purpose, 2 in, 5 out, till the sound went variable and lost interest. I stepped back outside because men live longer when they walk out of rooms that practice them. Cicadas worked the tree line like a generator you can trust. Tipple gave one more spine crack. Stars tried not to mind. At the gate, the old man-trip track glinted in weed gaps. Steel remembers feet. I followed it 30 yards to the supply shack where we used to sign tools. Roof sagged, door stuck. Inside smelled like oil, soap, and men who didn't get to die in their beds. On the pegboard hung a row of chalk sticks in a basket the color of bad safety vests. Fresh, square ends. Nobody leaves chalk like that after 10 years.
On the work table, dust wore a clean rectangle where a book had very recently not been.
My thumb found track grooves leading back toward the fan house. Dragged along the bench at hip height, then across cinder block, then to the chalkboard. I looked down. In coal dust at my boots, a line had been brushed across the floor. Chest high to a child, ankle high to me. Someone's safe line. I don't step over chalk that isn't mine. Back at the fan house, the board had grown a second line. Return, 0.06%. Beats, 72. I put 2 fingers on my throat because you do stupid math to feel held. I hit 72 if you count like a nervous nurse. I stopped counting and the number wrote itself 1 higher. Okay, I said to air and to whatever maps men inside stone draw. I wiped the board clean with the back of my sleeve until my name was smeared into ghost. A knock came from the sealed mouth. 3, pause, 2, 2, 3. Not roof rock. Roof rock drops are spiteful and final. This was patient. I did not answer. I took a slow lap around the concrete pad because motion is theology for cowards who live to see their grandchildren. When I came back, the board had written, "Without me." Out, 1943, home. Clock said 1905. I did not admire the handwriting. I leaned my head against the wall because walls hold more than men, and it helps to ask them to carry it. The cinder block was warm where I touched it, 10 degrees warmer than the air beside it. Behind that block lay a road I know blind. Entry, crosscut, return. Battery Scoop's grave. Lunch spot where we lied to each other to get through afternoon methane checks. A stopping 30 drops back that we built with block and mom's prayers, where I banged my thumb and bled stupid and laughed because laughing is cheap and useful. If there is a place I belong, it is behind this sealed square. Which is exactly why I don't belong there anymore.
I took the chalk and wrote my own nonsense to salt the room. Not in. VS. Just looking. Chalk skittered. My hand remembered writing in the entry for years. The letters kept my low T cross like a joke played on me by gravity. The fan breathed once to say it understood, and once more to say it didn't. I locked the door and told it a stranger would be back. The latch lowered a hair, like a dog lying down when you touch its head. I changed my hand and made the door be dumb. On the way down, I stopped by the portal we bricked, old drift mouth framed by railroad ties we kept for ceremony. Mortar lines clean, spray-painted danger faded to a whisper. On one block, where rain had kissed dust, the damp drew 4 dry letters the wet wouldn't stick to. Home. I wiped it with my jacket cuff and tasted pennies off the air. The mountain tastes like that when it wants to be in your mouth. Back at the truck, radio slept. Phone found 1 bar and swore at me about mail. I didn't send anyone anything. You file what you fear, you don't publish it. At the bottom of the grade, the creek that keeps the valley in a good mood ran light and clean over shale. I stopped to rinse dust out of my teeth. Water shook the light into coins. Virgil said something that used my mother's second syllable patience and my first foreman's disappointment.
It came from where cold air meets warm, the seam above the eddy. I did not put my full name in water. I stood and counted wrong and breathed ugly until my skin believed me. Home was a rental with aluminium that complains. I keep a line of rail spikes above the door, because if iron is wrong, it is wrong in the right direction. My latch clicked a hair polite when my hand got near. I changed my hand, knuckles first, then hook, so the door's pride would starve.
On the table sat the old cap lamp I sold for beer 20 years ago and bought back for shame. I hadn't left it on the table. The switch was off, and still the lens showed a pulse of reflection. Low, slow, mine not mine. I set my script on the glass. It warmed like it had been waiting to be held. From the bathroom vent fan, a low hum matched my beat for 2 cycles, then forgot like a child. In the junk drawer under the telephone, hidden where lists lose heart, lay a torn chalkboard corner that didn't belong to any school I've known. On it, in my hurry hand pressed deep enough to bruise slate, in 1907, V. Suttles. Under it, finer, out 1943, home. I put the triangle of slate back and closed the drawer like closing a mouth. Pipes under the sink spoke a thin s and waited for my la. I let them wait. At day shift, I told the new supervisor the fan house door needs a better hasp, and the fence wants a hug. I did not tell him the air was practicing being me. He's 26. His bones are rubber. He believes in lockout tags and not in songs inside block. He signed the work order and wrote my last name wrong like a blessing. That's what I wanted. If you ever go where work has been sealed, don't step over chalk that isn't yours. Let lines be fences you can afford. When air beats, breathe wrong. Starve the metronome. Keep iron on you. Let heat choose metal, not your meat. If a board writes your hours ahead, do the one you're in and leave the paper for ghosts. Never put your full name where temperatures change without a reason. Sometimes I drive past the tipple and let it talk. Sometimes the fan house gives one moan in my rhythm, and then loses it like a song you almost remember. Sometimes rain on the porch screen writes home, and moves the letters up when I exhale. When it does, I change my hand on the knob and count wrong until the house gets bored of me. I keep my script coin where a boy would, between teeth and thumb, so it tastes like blood and pay and the shift I didn't finish. And when a sealed mouth knocks 3, pause, 2, 2, 3 from inside block you laid yourself, don't answer. Let the ridge keep your beat. Let the board keep your handwriting. Let home be where air can't learn your name. Shelters are honest if you mind their manners. 3 walls, 1 roof, a mouse with seniority, a hook where other people's mornings drip dry. Name's Rowan Pike, 29, southbound section hiker on the Blue Ridge. Short rules fit in the pack. Don't whistle after dark. Don't follow foxfire off trail. Keep a rusty nail in the hip belt. Don't speak your full name at water. I reached the lean-to as Pink left the ridge. No one there. Good. I dropped the pack, shook the corners for mice out of respect, and took inventory like a nervous quartermaster. The shelter log hung on a nail. Spiral, duct-taped spine, rain-puffed pages. Last entry, gumdrop, Nobo, 12.4 miles. Saw foxfire near stream. Don't follow. Under it, tiny exact letters I didn't write. Rowan, Sobo, 0.0 today, 18.7 tomorrow. In, 1846. Out, 0712. My watch said 1824. Trail prank, I told myself. I closed the book before my doubt learned cursive. Wind eased. I built a small fire the way the rules approve, low and contain, the ring a neat grin of stones. Crickets started their thin applause. The creek kept 4 notes like a hymn that never earned words. I like being alone. It keeps the strange noises on payroll. Shelters throw voices. Mice rehearse lines they'll never finish. Bats gossip at a frequency that won't pay my rent. While dinner swelled, footsteps came up the left spur. Measured, polite. Gravel tick, dry leaf sigh. Evening, I called, voice easy, hands visible. No answer. The steps circled the firing once, careful arc, then stopped at my back where the lean-to shadow starts. I turned. Empty. I wrote a new rule out loud so Bones would hear it. If you circle me once, you circle me twice, then you leave. The steps obliged. Another lap, matching my gait from the last ridge, even the stutter where a root humbled me. They stopped again at the same empty patch.
From the shelter wall, 3. Pause. 2. 2. 3. Patient. Too polite to be settling. I did not answer. You don't feed perfect things. I opened the logbook again. Under my name a new line had appeared. Water North Spur only. Under that, faint, don't say it. North Spur, 20 steps down. Fog sat in the hollow like a guest. I filled the bottle without giving the creek my full name. Mist above the trickle moved in and out like a sleeping breath. When I held mine, it kept time for 1 beat, then softened. Manners. Not for me, I told it, and climbed back. Behind me, the creek almost said, Rowan, in my footfall rhythm, then forgot. Back at camp, the steps matched me for 2 paces, then quit, embarrassed. I logged my dinner, 1912 Mac and regret, because paper makes fear count. Turned the page and felt grooves where tomorrow had been written too hard. Out 0712, 18.7 miles, humpback knob. I hadn't chosen that. Night lay down. I smothered the flame to friendly coals and crawled into the bag on the platform, where 1,000 backs have made peace with knots. When I rolled onto my left, my loud shoulder, the steps started again. A lap around the ring, always opposite my face. I breathed wrong, 2 in, 5 out, so the night couldn't borrow my timing. The steps hesitated, then chose their own rhythm and kept it. Sometime after sleep began renting me in half-hour blocks, a hand I didn't own pressed flat on the outside of my bag, a mother's fever check. Not cold, not warm. Weight thinking about being touch. I set my palm over it. It flattened, withdrew, patient as water leaving rock. At 2:13, the logbook turned a page by itself. Not wind. Wait. I let it. Dawn parceled the world back. Grey, then tree, then the color of bread in old leaves. The footsteps did one last polite lap in daylight, shy like goodbye, coffee as sacrament. The logbook now read in tiny, certain script. Rowan,
SOBO. 18.7 miles to Humpback Knob. Out 7:12. Don't whistle on the saddle. Something listens. H. Pressure marks on the next page wore my low T cross I hate in my handwriting. On the first saddle, habit tried to whistle my grandfather's bear tune. I closed my mouth like a door. Wind supplied a whistle in my exact key, brushed my cheek with it, then let it drop. I breathed wrong. The wind snapped once, annoyed child. At mile 7, a note under a rock. Ziploc, spiral page, same tiny hand. Humpback full. Use shelter south. Don't arrive 7:12 tomorrow. Arrive late. H. Backside grooves. My mistakes. No one gets those but me. I didn't admire the handwriting. Near mile 15, water again. Cold that negotiates truth. I said row in my head and left an unoffered. Mist reached for the second syllable like a curious hand and missed. Humpback's last push put letters in my ankles. The shelter showed like a sentence that knows the period is coming. 2 pads, roof, a view that forgives bad decisions. No humans. Good. Inside the log, my line had been updated. Out 0712, crossed thin overwritten, 0719. I set my alarm for 0723 to insult perfection. Dark settled, and the wall gave the same knock. 3. Pause. 2. 2. 3. I touched the nail in my belt pocket. I didn't answer. At 2:13 sharp, the pages turned again. I rolled to face the posts and counted wrong to 100 until numbers got embarrassed. Morning, the book said. Out 7:19, in that tidy hand we don't own. I left at 7:23. On trail, foxfire glowed under rhododendron, making lanes of invitations. Rule saved me. Don't follow lights you didn't hang. A week later at home, my front door tried to anticipate me. Latch eased a hair like a dog rolling to get its belly blessed. I changed my hand, knuckles first, then hook, so the knob wouldn't learn me.
On the table sat a small spiral I don't own, duct-taped spine, rain-swollen. Open to today, Rowan, 0.0 miles, 18.7 tomorrow, out 0712. I closed it. The grooves stayed like pressure you can read with skin. From the hall, footsteps made one polite circle, dry, measured, and stopped at my back where there's only wall. I breathed wrong. Let coffee boil over to bore the room. If you sleep in a 3-walled room, the ridge lends you, don't whistle on the saddle. Let wind be the only mouth. Keep iron warm in the belt. It remembers you better than fog does. If footsteps circle, set a rule and keep it. Don't turn. Don't feed the perfect. Read the log after sunrise. Make tomorrow hike uphill to find you. Change your hand on doorknobs at home. Sometimes the trail finds an address. I still hike. I still count blazes like beads. Sometimes the logbook writes miles I haven't earned. Sometimes water wants the last syllable of my name and I keep it. Sometimes footsteps take a tidy lap in my apartment just to see if I'll match. I don't. I breathe wrong. I park the pack crooked. I let the future be late. Night shift makes the county small. A few miles of 2-lane, 3 Baptist lots, 1 diner that forgives everybody, and a 1-lane truss bridge at Oxbow that never learned how to mind its fog. Name's Deputy Lane Harker,
37. Born 2 ridges over, raised on creek rules and quiet fathers. I wear the badge like a borrowed coat that fits better in winter. Rules I keep and didn't invent. Don't put your full name across water. Don't answer any cry that uses your exact cadence. Keep iron in your pocket, a nail, a key that never matched anything. Change your hand on latches so doors don't learn you. 114, we got it. 911, hang up, Oxbow Bridge. Caller sounded like a child. Line went dead. Dispatch said it careful, like she was carrying glass. 10-76, I said, and wished I hadn't made the sound so polite. Fog lay low in the switchbacks, a silver that refused to choose a shape. At the bottom of the descent, the river put its voice up through the rollers, a husk of white over black, learning vowels. I killed the siren out of respect. Fog carries sound wrong. You don't teach it your timing. Truss threw a lattice of wet geometry over the roadbed. I nosed the cruiser into the mouth until the tires were on plank and history. Stopped. County, I called out the window. Call again if you can. The fog answered by breathing in toward the rail. When I held my breath, it kept time 1 beat longer, and then forgot, like a kid trying to be clever. On the wet green of the truss, droplets gathered into words the way dew sometimes writes poems it doesn't understand. 1 word. Home. Dry in the middle, water refusing to settle on those 4 letters. I wiped it with my sleeve, tasted coin in the air for my trouble. The cry came soft, then nearer, in my own patrol car cadence, on 3 seconds, off 1. Like the siren I run when roads are empty and I'm being a grown-up about speed.
Help, it said. Small, pleading, practiced. Help. The radio clicked open, uninvited, hissed, and then, in my mouth, said, Lane. Not dispatch, not prank, just my name the way my mother warmed it on a bad day. I thumbed the mic and didn't talk, let the carrier hang like a dare. The fog drew back a hand's width from the rail and stayed interested. I stepped out, boots on wet plank, holster heavy like understanding. Iron key in my pocket, warming just because my hand asked it to. Where? I said, low, syllables careful as a man walking on corncrib slats. Here, the cry answered. Then, again, on, 3 seconds, off, 1, like it had a metronome and owed it rent. I moved up the truss 1 panel at a time because panels are how you make fear do math. From under the deck, 3 knocks, pause, 2, 2, 3. Polite, patient. Not wood complaining, asking. I did not answer. Perfect patterns get hungry when you feed them. Halfway across, the fog thinned enough to show a shape at the rail, small, still, like a kid in a hoodie sitting on the curb of a decision. Don't, I told my legs. They disagreed. At 10 feet, the shape stayed shape and refused to volunteer a face. Name? I asked. Lane, it said. My name. My cadence. 3 seconds up, 1 down. I changed the question. What color hoodie? Lane, it said again, because hunger is not a good listener. There's a way to talk to a thing that knows your name. You make it fetch. Hold up your right hand, I said. The left twitched, the right followed late, as if taking notes. You hurt? I asked, because I'm paid to ask dumb things gently. Help, it said, and the fog clipped the consonant the way my radio clips when the antenna's iced. I kept the rail between us and leaned enough to see the water under the deck. The river moved like a working animal, no beauty, all muscle. In the undertow, the mist pushed in toward the deck, out of rhythm with the current, as if the river had learned lungs and didn't mind lying about them. Dispatch,
I said, finally, because loneliness is expensive. Show me on Oxbow, possible juvenile, possible false alarm, visibility low. 10-4, she said. Unit 2 is en route from the ridge. 2, I said to no one, is 3 valleys and a wrong turn from useful. The cry came again, help, and under it, perfect and obvious now, my siren timing. I reached for the switch out of shame and found it already on a hair. I hadn't touched it. I killed it the rest of the way, and the cry's tempo held. Not mine, I told it. Not tonight. I set another rule loud enough for the bones inside the bridge to hear it. If you need me, you change your timing. 2 seconds on, 2 off silence. Then, help. Unoffended, unchanged. Under my boot, the plank dipped, a hair, as if something beneath had tried the idea of buoyancy and didn't like it. Water knocked once more. 3, pause. 2, 2, 3. Respectful as a church usher. I backed one panel, and the shape backed the same distance, keeping 10 feet like a professional. Don't be good at me, I said, and hated that it sounded like a prayer. Lane? Unit 2, breathless and too hopeful. You got eyes? Fog into shape, I said. Hold the far apron. Do not hit siren. Copy, he said, and I could hear in his young voice the particular pride that kills men. Sirens off. A breeze did the rude thing and shoved fog off the deck a second. Where the shape sat, there was only air and rail and the river lifting mist like a banquet lid. Not even footprints on wet. But on the midspan nameplate, the rivet heads wore 4 clean circles where dew refused to be, spelling nothing and exactly home. I walked forward anyway, because hurt is a better story than haunted. At the rail, I leaned out over black. Water carried 1 shutter of light from my bar and broke it into coins that piled on themselves and slid away.
Lane, something said from under the deck. My name again, my mother's second syllable, Patience. I put my hand on the rail, and it lowered a hair before my fingers closed, eager latch. I changed my hand, palm flat first, then hook, so the metal wouldn't learn me. I took out the PA mic and dropped its cord over the rail. Kid, I said, count to 5. Silence. Then, obedient, I counted to 5 in my own voice from under the bridge, slow, sheriff sure, the way I teach rookies not to be brave when they should be careful. Don't, I told the water, and felt stupid in both directions. Lights came up on the far apron, Unit 2, soft wash through gauze. The fog between us stiffened like a spine. He keyed and said my full name with rookie conscience. Deputy Lane Harker, you good? The river lifted under the planks like something learning manners. Do not say my full at the water, I said, too late for theology. From the downstream face, a second cry rose, same pitch, my siren timing again, and now a third answered, offbeat by half a breath like a harmony that hasn't learned the song. Hunger multiplying. Under the deck, 3, 2, 2, 3. Softer now, like a child tired of practicing. I backed to the mouth of the truss with the same patience I empty a church at closing. Boots, plank, panel, letting the bridge count me out. At the abutment, the fog leaned after me and stopped at the concrete seam like it respected property. I opened the cruiser door. The latch clicked a hair before I pulled. I changed my hand again, because repetition is a kind of consent. Inside, the onboard camera screen glowed to life without my key. It had framed the empty bridge perfectly and wrote timestamp 0119 in the corner. Under it, in thin, precise overlay font that we do not own, out 0143. I took a steady breath, full of coffee and anger, and turned the camera off.
The screen stayed on until it forgot me. Unit 2 arrived looking like a promise with fog on it. Kid's eyes were proud. Pride fell off him when the cry answered him in his own siren timing. He paled, which made him kin. "What's policy?" he asked, because policy keeps boys breathing. "Policy says we don't put names in water and we don't match cadences," I said. "Policy also says we search." We did our search like honest men who still plan to go home. Check upriver berms, call out questions that don't teach the air anything, sweep under the abutments with flash, throw light without giving rhythm. Half an hour, 40 minutes, fog pushing and pulling like a clerk sliding paper. Nothing that needed a blanket, nothing that earned a report that wouldn't end my job. The cry followed us to the upriver bend, stayed 10 feet offset, then quit like a bored dog when we denied it toys. I cleared us 10-8 because you can leave a place without winning and still call it work. Back home, the screen door knew my hand too well. It eased the latch like it wanted praise. I changed my hand, knuckles first, then hook, so the knob would unlearn me. In the kitchen, the faucet hummed one word in thin metal. Not sound, but pressure you can hear with your bones. Home. My radio on the counter, power off, gave one clean carrier. "Lane," it said in my mother's Sunday voice. "Bring the light." I put the radio in the bread box and closed it like closing a small, talkative coffin. At the window, condensation pulled inward for 2 breaths and offered me my siren's tempo as a way to belong. I breathed wrong on purpose, 2 in, 5 out, until glass got bored and went back to being glass. I filed the 911 the way the county likes, unfounded, conditions, fog, river high. I did not write, cry learned my cadence, or bridge wrote home in dew. I'm fond of paychecks and longer lives than my grandfather.
If you ride nights where water keeps secrets and steel pretends to be scripture, kill the siren when fog gets greedy. Don't gift timing to the holler. Never say your full name across water. Keep a syllable for yourself. When a cry uses your rhythm, make it fetch, change the tempo. If it won't, it's not yours. Answer policy, not perfection. Search without teaching the river your measure. Change your hand on every latch afterward. Don't let the bridge follow you home by your touch. I still patrol the Oxbow posts. Sometimes dew on the nameplate leaves those 4 dry letters. Sometimes the cry tries my timing and then forgets, like a song you almost remember on Monday. Sometimes at 0143, my apartment lock gives a 1 polite click scales use to let a man through, and the faucet hums home so quiet you could pretend you didn't hear it. I change my hand. I breathe wrong. I don't answer perfect things. And if a child's voice ever matches my siren exactly, in a place where the river writes letters with water, I search by policy, and I leave by panel, and I let the bridge keep my name. The ridge heard their names. It learned their steps. It practiced their breath until the dark could wear them like a coat. A lineman who stopped reading tags. A caretaker who refused the center of the square. A miner who let sealed air keep its beat. A hiker who made tomorrow show up late. A deputy who searched by policy, not hunger. If any of this felt familiar, if paper prints your time before you live it, if fog breathes in to meet your chest, if footsteps circle with your limp,
If steel latches lower to greet your hand, break the pattern. Breathe wrong on purpose, blink out of rhythm. Don't say your full name at water. Don't follow lights you didn't hang. Change your hand on every door. And if a voice uses your exact cadence, in your mother's tone, from the place that wants you most, do not answer perfect things. You've been listening to Horror Nexus. If these Appalachian confessions found you in the dark, subscribe, ring the bell, and share this with someone who knows the rules and the cost of breaking them. Tell us your own ridge laws in the comments. We read them all when the insects go quiet.